everybody. My name is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you so much for joining me. So today I wanted to talk a bit about how the Matrix handles us and how Louche energy and agreements ties into this. So thank you so much for joining me. If you guys will just give me a thumbs up, let me know that you can hear me. Go ahead and say hello in the chat. I'm so happy to be with you guys again. And before I get started, while I let some people come into the room, I just want to let you guys know that if you are interested in participating in a 4-week course on dream interpretation and astral projection, I'm doing an early bird special. This will run until Tuesday, and it's $175 for the 4 weeks. After Tuesday, the price goes to $210, and this will be a very comprehensive, interactive course with a wonderful group of people. If you would like to learn more about this or sign up for this course, you can go to jupitersoundscape.com/workshops-1 and sign up. Okay, and this will also be one of the prereqs. Hi, Christiana. One of the prerequisite courses leading up to my level 1 certification that's coming up for Intuitive Soul Advancement certification and training. Alrighty, so let's get into it. I had a subscriber ask about gang stalking, and the way that she sent me the email seemed to, I felt like she was presuming that gang stalking is solely geared towards light workers. So I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about that as one of the items here. And I've got a big list we're going to go through. But again, as usual, feel free to chime in and ask questions, and I'll get to as much info as I can. So just for anybody who doesn't know, gang stalking is basically when somebody is followed, they feel like they're being spied on. Maybe this doesn't have to be just physically in life. This can also be like on YouTube, on social media platforms. There is an apparent knowing, because the purpose of gang stalking is so that the victim or the person receiving the gang stalking is aware it's happening. So it's a psyop, it's a psychological operation to upset the person, get under their skin, start to get them to feel paranoid and upset and anxious and all of these things. Okay, so this happens not just to light workers by any means. This happens to anybody who is what we call targeted. So if this individual, if there's no apparent reason why they are being gang stalked, it can often be because of their celestial bloodline. So we've talked a bit before, hi soul schooling, about the primes and the mechas and the reals. So if this person is somebody who is what the starseeds might term awakened, or they have a bloodline that is important enough that it's taken notice, they may be subject to gang stalking. This will also go for people that are truthing. A lot of people who have any level of media, like they have an audience and they're speaking on things that are counter to what mainstream or the particular groups going after them are pushing. Okay, so something I've noticed about gang stalking in regard to being followed or tailed, where they make it very obvious that it's happening, like you see somebody across the street looking at you and just hanging around. I've noticed that certain countries have different styles of handling and targeting and all of this. And so in the UK, there's a big push on gang stalking in that style. I think it happens, what I've heard is that it happens more in the UK in that way than it does in the US. I don't know exactly why. Maybe that's just one of their the ways they like to do it. And when that kind of thing happens, usually it's that person's been hired. So somebody's like tailing them or whatever. They're literally just there to freak them out, upset them. They're just a hired minion, basically doing a job, which is, pretty below the belt. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second, because that got brought up and some questions were being asked. Hi, Kathy. And Okay, Soul Schooling saying, I can't believe you were talking about this. I just had these feelings today. You're welcome. And a reason why I brought up this topic, and I know we talked about handling a little bit before, but it's really ramping up right now, guys. So a big part of what's going on right now is there is so much more efficiency in the way in which we are all being handled, right? So it's an important topic, and it's going to continue to be important forevermore. And it's good for us to understand how these things happen and what's going on in certain ways, so that we can work to counter it in get to a place where we know that this is just a part of the way it is now. We have to understand that, in the same ways that maybe we have to deal with pollution or we have to deal with negative people, we also have to deal with handling. It's a part of life, and it's going to be here forevermore because it's built into the inverse matrix. All right, so I'm just going to peek at my notes here. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is, I might hop around a little bit. Oh, okay, so let's, last 2 videos ago, I gave you guys homework and I posted the link to a video. I'm just going to cross off what I've talked about so I stay on track here. I posted a link to a video and I said, okay, find the tell in this video of why I perceive that person, that video is not on the up and up. And so a lot of you got it right. The tell was there was a clip of a female where her hair is over her eye. So you get the evil eye, the all-seeing eye, and it just flashed for a moment. And there's no reason for that clip to be there. It had nothing to do with what that person was talking about. And so that was a wonderful, obvious frequency signature stamp to see what's going on, the agenda of that person and that, I guess I'll say company, because something I also wanted to bring up in about that, if you guys know what I'm talking about, is the platform in which that video was pushing is a psyop, in my perspective. So a lot of us are very aware right now. And, what's interesting is we're seeing, I did another video the other day on the 2 world split. And so we're seeing such a loud, obvious juxtaposition to those of us that are looking for this type of information. And it's so apparent and obvious that a lot of this information is going away really quickly, right? We're all saying, helping each other out, hey, download this video if you appreciate it and see that information is valid for you, because it might be gone in a split second. Well, it's so obvious to us, okay? We see this. Though to people that aren't looking for maybe truth information or these types of topics, and they're very used to the mainstream, or they're just not paying attention, they're clueless that this is happening. They have never heard of it. They didn't know this. And that's interesting because that's so telling of how they'll never know. They'll never possibly have access or the opportunity to know that there was ever any counter information, because it'll be gone and they weren't looking for it. So they'll just keep going on their way, receiving the information that's fed to them, more through the mainstream media for the masses. So this platform that was mentioned in that video is presented as a platform that assists those that are losing their voice and their freedom of speech. It was offering up a platform in which one can go post all of their works, just like how YouTube, holds as kind of an umbrella platform. And what's wonderful about YouTube is it's an archive, right? It's a server where you can upload immense amount of video for free. Because, as somebody who is a creator of videos and is creating courses and this is a part of how I financially thrive, it's expensive to price in, Vimeo on the tier that I've signed up for, but you can't trust on Vimeo anymore because they're doing the same. They're deleting channels. That's $1,000 a year. That's substantial, right? So what YouTube offers in general is fabulous. Though when they start to take things away, we've got a huge problem, right? So this platform offered up another way in which you can receive back your freedom of speech and feel, safe for all of your information to be out there in a collective where there's also many, many people coming in to consume that same type of information. The people that are getting deleted on these types of platforms need somewhere to go, right? So therein lies one problem for the controllers. We're just going to call it real general. If they delete the people that are speaking counter to the mainstream storyline, how do they keep up and track and know what information they're actually giving out? How can they be clear on understanding what information those people know, how much they know and where they've sourced it and things like that? So, solution, let's create platforms where we can put them all in one place and still track them. They're still handled, they're still watched, they're still accumulated. There you go. So that's my take on that video. That's Celestial Say. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back 2 videos, I think it was, and check it out for yourself. Let me get to some questions. Okay, Soul Schooling says, I'm just so thankful that I can feel into what's happening, even though I don't exactly always know where it's coming from. Thanks to souls like you for sharing. I appreciate that, Soul Schooling. Nicole says, I posted a simple post on my Insta story about the WHO and how corrupt they are, and I immediately felt psychically attacked and kept hearing, take it down. I felt bullied to remove it. WTF. Absolutely. So that's interesting, Nicole. I long ago stopped utilizing Facebook as a common platform that I engaged on. Some of y'all might have noticed that if you've tried to interact with me on Facebook, I'm not there. The only reason you have to have Facebook to have Insta. I have an Insta account, chloe.worldpeace, and I've got where my Insta auto posts on my Facebook. Facebook long ago, right? And this is pretty mainstream information, is such a invasive, emotional, manipulating platform where you can feel the AI come out through whatever black box you're using to watch your technology, through your technology. So I won't use it because I feel it so strong. And not only that, but I see Facebook. When I do sessions with clients, I see Facebook implants in their field often. So just note that etherically, it gets in your space and it's very invasive. Insta has had an uptake on that. Now, for whatever reason, Insta's been a bit more passive, at least in the way that I feel it. The frequencies, though there has been a big uptake on it. And you will feel those, Nicole, because as something I'm going to get into when we get to talking about agreements and consent, we have agreed and consented to access those platforms. So that agreement opens up access to your etheric field and your bodies and whatever they're trying to push. They have your agreement to access you through that technology, through that application. So it's important to know. Now, Nicole, what you're saying right now is you felt not just that psychic attack, but you received the telephony, it's called. So telephony is the synthetic telepathy. Okay, so for a very long time, these groups have had access to false telepathy. Okay, this is where, now a lot of you know, and I am going to get into this just a little bit, but I don't go there a lot because, I know this can get a bit just upsetting and triggering to some people on this platform. But many of you know that I do not advocate channeling mediumship. Okay, and many of you also know that I was a medium, a channel for 15 years straight, hardcore. I was dedicated, not just for career, but also, just for my social means, communicating with guides and my animals and plants and whatever. And so I still am working to withdraw channeling because it's on such a default for me now, and I get lazy and it's easier for me than telepathy, because channeling takes away that kind of third person relay where it's like let's say I'm doing it for a client. If I'm communicating with a being or their soul or whatever, if I channel, then I'm just that portal, right? So it goes from the being to them, and I just let it go through me. But if I'm just communicating through telepathy, I'm going to communicate, and then I'm going to turn, and I'm going to translate, and I'm going to relay. And it takes an extra step, but it's well worth it. And I'll tell you why in just a second, though I digress. So Nicole, what I'm trying to say is a lot of people who, not everybody by any means, but this happens to a lot of us, including me, and I know how to recognize it now because it's been happening for years, it's been happening for over a decade. You know, a very common way people perceive they start channeling is they're receiving telephony. So it's, you know, they're hearing the communication, but it's not organic telepathy. It's synthetic telepathy. It's projected thought forms into their mindscape, into their brain. And then they receive it, and then they perceive its guides or whatever they perceive. But it's what you're experiencing. How you say, I heard, take it down. So that is a thought form being projected into your field, and then you absorb it. And there's a way to counter that. There's plenty of ways to counter that. First, you start recognizing the frequency signature, and you push it out of your space. If you want to know more about thought forms, guys, I did a really comprehensive podcast style interview that's posted on my channel. I don't know how far back it is. It was a while ago, but I really went into breaking down false thoughts and the biology of thought forms. I think I titled it. So check that out. Okay, so let me get... Love Light says, hey guys, came across a site recommended from another light worker that is similar to the one you were mentioning. All sources in one place. We'll try to find the link. Okay, thank you for that if it resonates. Is Soul Schooling says, is there any way you can keep the Insta account and not consent to the energetic manipulation? So, okay, we're going to get into agreement, Soul Schooling. So I'm going to answer that in just a couple minutes, okay? Suzanne says, me too. Every time I wanted to post on Facebook, I got such anxiety. Then I would get attacked by friends. I thought there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't handle it and didn't have my protection. No, there's not something wrong with you at all, Suzanne. You're aware of what's happening. There's so much psychic manipulation. I'll tell you guys a quick story, actually. On my birthday last year, I think it was last year, I was with a friend, and we were at a bar, and we had met some guys, and we were just talking to them, and I noticed one of them, because, you know, in the U.S., a big question is, what do you do for a living, right? It's such a tacky question that we ask, but it's like, how's the weather? We just go there, right? As if that's so much of who they are. But anyway, so this guy was avoiding answering what he did for a living. And at that time, I was living in Santa Cruz, California, which is very, very close to Silicon Valley. And in Santa Cruz and some of the outlying cities, it's a sensitive topic for people that work for Google and these big conglomerations to address it in Santa Cruz, because there's so many alternative people in the know that judge it. They don't like it, right? And the people that work for those, you know, in the tech industry know that. And so it's uncomfortable for them, of course, and they don't want to address it a lot. So anyway, it finally comes out, and his friend shares that he works for Facebook. And I said, what do you do? Like, what exactly is your role? And his title, you guys, I wish I could remember the exact title, but it said it in the title, was basically emotional manipulation research. That's what he did. Like, that was the totality of his work. And it was so interesting, because when I looked at him when he said it, and I watched in his pupils the entities, the negative black goo, the AI, move. It was like, it looked like, you know, in a lava lamp, when the I don't know what that's made of, you know, but the lava does that kind of ripple in the water, this black thing did it in his pupils. It was really interesting. And from that moment on, when I was talking to him, I was talking to the AI in him, because that's another thing. If you're aware, just like you can do it with the technology, Facebook, you can do it with a person, whatever. I often will bypass the person, or let's say the technology or whatever, and start communicating directly with the consciousness, the AI, the tech, the being, the entity, whatever. Even if the human doesn't understand it, I don't care, because I want that being or entity consciousness to know that I'm aware it's there and I don't consent. I'm not okay with it. It's not allowed to access my field. So that's a way you can start doing it. Though when you've opted in to these consents, these agreements, you're giving permission for whatever it is they want to do. That's why it's very, very important to get on your game about your revocations and your declarations. And they're really powerful right now, guys. I know that, this is my field and I do a lot of work. So the more I do it, the more efficient and more powerful it gets. And lately I've been doing something a little bit new to me, which could assist you. When I utilize the declarations or the revocations with clients, there's like a two-step process I've been doing. So we'll open up energetic space, and whatever time, let's say I'm viewing a timeline for them, and we're doing proper shadow work, because that's another thing that's huge. And I know I talk about this a lot, but everybody has to do their shadow work. If you want your authority and sovereignty, and you want to command your ownership and be able to revoke and that actually work, you have to clear and heal your soul fragmentations and heal the trauma pieces and the fragments and the way in which those parts of you, those aspects, were hijacked in the first place. You have to. That's the way this inverse matrix works, okay? You have to make the subconscious conscious. There's no getting around it. It doesn't mean you need to know every single detail. It doesn't mean you need to relive all the trauma, though you have to access those fragments, those timelines, the conscious agreements of the different parts of your soul throughout your entire existence, and reintegrate them. Because those fracture points, those trauma points, those agreements, those lifetimes where so I'll use me as an example. I have now been able to trace my origin point, okay? I've lived a lot of timelines, and I've lived a lot of timelines where I was not a good dude. I was into some gnarly shit, okay? I've got timelines where I was pure evil. I've got timelines where I was, as saintly as possible. We're all over the board because we want to experience it. That's the point of creation. So many of us have had some really horrific, nasty, negative timelines and everything in between. We've had some fabulous ones too. Though the point of this is the nasty ones where that aspect, I call the soul aspect, I call it an aspect, where they intentionally opted in, they're the ones you got to seek out, because that's still an access into your consciousness. And through that opt-in is where this stuff, this AI, the Borg, the beings, whatever it is, find that in your consciousness, and they utilize that agreement piece, that ability for them to slide in and hijack into this now moment. Because remember, the experience of space, time, space from 3D, we tend to perceive it as linear, past, present, future. It's all in now moment. So when you go access that healing point, in that timeline, in whatever timeline it was, or universe it was, or dimension, or world, or whatever, you're doing it in now time and space, okay? So it's important to do that. Okay, let me get back to some questions. I might have just lost track of what I was actually saying in the first place, but oh, I remember what I was saying. Sorry, guys. I was talking about the agreements. Okay, so what I've been doing is in the sessions, I'll access, the timeline that needs to be healed or whatever will come up. And So in a bulk of my work is what I like to do is I reverse engineer timelines, and I'll be teaching a course on that soon enough. It'll go towards my level 1 certification of an intuitive soul advancement if you're interested. So I'll hold space, I'll hold energetic space in that insertion point in the timeline while I have, my client here and now holding space as well. And then I'll facilitate them. And since we're on the phone or Skype or Zoom or whatever, I'll speak out the declaration or revocation and I'll have them repeat it after me. So they're declaring it or revoking. And I'm also holding witness. I'm seconding that motion as true. I'm witnessing them as creation, upholding this declaration. And that's been really, really powerful. So if you go to do your declarations and revocations, and you have somebody that you trust, they don't need to be physically with you. Ask them to hold some energetic space or do it with them, right? Have them listen and witness you as this revocation. So it's that much more grounded and anchored. Okay, so let's see. I'll get back to... Kathy says, FB fact checkers are removing materials that don't fit their agenda left and right. I've had to back off because I feel agitated after being in there. Yeah, I mean, that's just what they're all of those platforms are going to keep moving towards this. And I really do appreciate that Trump has decided to take some action towards these, these controller groups around the freedom of speech. I haven't been watching a lot of the mainstream media, so you guys might know more about what's going on with that lawsuit. But I did hear it a little bit, and I'm obviously assuming that it has to do with the removal of all the info. So that's a nice thing. Love Light says, okay, you left a link. Well, if anybody wants to check that out, love. Someone gave me a lava lamp today. That's awesome. That's funny. Unified Master says, wrap up the lesson and integrate. Exactly, right? So everything has value. We are going to repeat these cycles and patterns and loops and karmic timelines and all of these things until our soul has found the value of that lesson. Once you find the value, you can integrate it. But if you're a cog on the wheel, you haven't been able to extract the value out of it yet and graduate. And that's the key. That's the point. And a lot of that I've seen is just the soul, like the human, right? We have these mind swipes. We come in with a mind swipe. Well, the soul has this experience where it's so fragmented, it's not aware of all of the different soul aspects that are doing all these experiences, and it might not know enough as well to glean the value, integrate, clear it, release the karma, what have you. So you're constantly improving your soul just like you're improving your human. Your soul is just this experiencing technology that's accumulating all of it. Okay, so LG says, or at least be able to acknowledge it to begin with. Yeah, that's a huge piece. It's really important. And that's a great point. And I hope I'm saying your name right, LG. Sometimes, we get an awareness of things that maybe we're not ready to clear or change, or maybe we're up to, and we kind of don't want to perceive ourselves that way. But if we're willing to acknowledge it and just admit that we're doing it, or be aware that that's happening, and that's okay, that often clears out a huge amount of cognitive dissonance where we're fighting ourselves against what is. You're allowed to have these experiences, even if you know it's not what's in your highest good. If there's still value you're gaining out of it, you may choose to judge yourself or be susceptible to the external judgments that are projecting in from internal judgment, though you're still gaining value. And that's obviously a lesson you require. And so give yourself some peace in just saying, okay, I see that I'm doing this. I'm going to accept that I'm doing this so I can gain all the value I need and not have to have this extra flack of me self-deprecating. And when I'm ready to clear it, I'll clear it. And that's very, very important. That's also a huge piece around the releasing the resistance, because ultimately in, creation energetics, antimatter matter in its simplest form, it's pure allowance, it's surrender, it's that frequency. So when you access that frequency, as we've talked about many times before, you call in more spirit and the ability for you to transmute it. You might not even need to have conscious focus on it for it to start to transmute. Soul Schooling says, I'm so interested. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad that I have interesting things to talk about. Okay, so let me get back to my notes here. And okay, one thing I did want to mention in regard to the channeling is, I'm just scratching off what I've talked about. Okay, so yeah, I've been kind of avoiding this topic a little bit because I know that maybe a lot of you guys might be channeling, and that's a very common practice. Though at this point, I want to share things that you need to understand about it. And this goes into the Looshing. So channeling is an agreement, okay? It is basically, and I'm not saying it's all negative by any means. I'm saying this as a matter of fact. Right now, this statement is without judgment. It's just what it is, okay? So channeling or mediumship is possession. When you're allowing your body to become an open vessel for any consciousness or beings or entities or whatever you're channeling to come through, you're allowing it to possess you, okay? That's even the case if you're channeling your art, if you're channeling your spirit, it's still possessing you. There's a negative connotation on the term possession, of course, right? Though, just like the negative connotation that's on the word manipulation, when you are writing, you're manipulating the pen. That's just how it is. Regardless of how you're going to perceive the word manipulation, that's what you're doing, okay? So when you allow these, when anyone channels, when I have channeled, and I've allowed these entities or beings, and a lot of times it's not who you think it is, okay, to come through, especially if we clip back to how we were talking about the telephony or the false telepathy, where people perceive that they're channeling and they're in agreement with that in their consciousness, they're open to it. We get into the Louche energy, okay, because a lot of these entities, especially the reptilians, they like to feed on Louche. What is Louche? Louche is your hormonal energetic excretion that is food for these different fourth density beings and creatures, and even higher densities, okay? They feed on what's termed your Louche. It's a source of food. Now, they can hook in through protuberances and etheric cords and all of these types of things, but something that happens a lot, especially with channeling, is they hook into your spinal column, accessing primarily through crown and root, and they start to siphon. And they start to siphon very specifically your cerebral spinal fluid. And after time, that starts to disintegrate your physicality. So if there's any of you guys who have been following, channelers from back in the day, let's say channelers from at least 20, 30 years ago, and you watch the progression of their health, a lot of them become extremely sick. They become very gaunt. They look haggard. They look ill. They get very sick because they're being constantly siphoned, constantly, nonstop sucked on, and they're allowing it, and they keep bringing through the entities or the consciousness or the energy. So be very aware of that. And I'm going to warn you, as somebody who has residual effects from that I'm still dealing with in my spine physically, please don't scoff at that one. If you are channeling and you're a medium and you're like, oh, well, I do my protections, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, great. And it may be that you're also being siphoned, okay? So I just want to put that out there because that's important. That's a huge deal, and it's something that's very common that's not seen as readily, right? We don't hear a lot of people talking about that. And it's very, very common for channelers. And, just like us looking at our own stuff, it's more difficult for us to see what's going on for us than it may be for our clients or other people. That's just the way it is. So just know that and be warned. There's way to be warned. There's ways to clear it and heal it that you need to put a stop to it immediately. There are so many different ways to communicate and connect as opposed to channeling. And unfortunately, because we're in this inverse matrix, it's just a really dangerous thing to do. I'm just at that place where I don't advocate for it at all. And I'm not saying that I know wonderful information and wonderful beings can come through, though it's not safe. And something that becomes very apparent to me with this, when beings are truly here to communicate for our highest intention and regard and to help us, they know all of these beings can see all of your frequency. They know what's happening to you in your bodies. How come they're willing to come through and channeling and not let you know that that's dangerous for you? Of course, you still have your own free will and choice. Though, if they were here with a true pure agenda to assist and help, and they haven't brought that to your attention in the first place, that's a little fishy, if you ask me. So that's all I'll say about that. LG says, very true, energetic vampires. I have to constantly put my foot down and say no. Absolutely. And that's ramping up right now, which is a big reason why I want to, talk about these topics right now. Okay, so I'm just going to cross that one off. So, another thing I wanted to mention is, and, I hope that, I apologize if a lot of this sounds, negative, but I feel like we're just, for those of us that are tuning in at this point and we're on this path, we're just aware that we're full on in warfare, man. This is full on spiritual warfare, okay? And it's just the way it is. And it's time for us to really double down if we haven't. And, it sucks. It's not our most optimum, but it's how it is. And we have to deal with it, and we have to assist ourselves. And facing things and breaking down the cognitive dissonance, it can be very difficult looking at the trauma and the shadow self. Though for me, it's the only thing I perceive that can be done if I want to be efficient in accessing my authority. Love Light says, so this has got to be what's going on when I'm asleep. Not complaining, but I'll seriously have 6 or 7 orgasms and dreams, and ones that aren't always erotica and out of place. That's interesting. Do you remember any of your dreams, Love Light? Is this handling, sexual body handling? I'm going to get into that too. I like that you're intuiting everything I'm going to talk about here. Okay, so another thing I wanted to say real quick. Healers out there, you guys, and we'll go into a lot of the handling stuff here in just a second. This might be a longer video. And a lot of the information I'll give in just a little bit is going to kind of explain this a bit more. So just know you'll get more context soon enough. Though when I go into the information about the handling, the programming, and the implantations, I want you to know that everybody is susceptible to this, but especially healers, because we're specifically accessing people's soul and consciousness and energetics. When we are hacked or handled and, have all good intentions, though the healer themselves isn't holding pure sovereignty or as much as possible in command and cleared energy field, those beings and entities in consciousness spy through you, okay? They come through you to access that person's energy and codes and information. They gain a lot of inside intel to understand what it is we're becoming aware of and what we know and what's happening and maybe origins and all of these things. So protect your privacy, protect your information, and protect your clients. And for those of you who are seeking professional shadow work, which I highly, highly advise, please put it in your budget to have assistance in shadow work. I would love for you to come visit me and have session with me. Of course, that's why I'm here, to assist and also, to receive assistance from you guys. Though I strongly believe that it's very, very important and way more efficient to receive professional assistance for clearing your shadow work. I personally, I do my own shadow work on myself, and I'm proficient at that, but I don't just do that. I probably budget 2 to 3 hour to hour and a half or 2 hour sessions a month. And I also am implementing now, because it's time to double down. And this is a big financial commitment for me, but for me, this is all there is I'm now going to be budgeting in bigger intensives every 2 months. And those are bigger chunks of cost for me. Those are going to be, so I probably budget, honestly, guys, probably budget at least, and I'm not saying this is what you need to do. I'm just saying this is what I do, right? I budget probably a fourth of my income to my healing. That's a lot, right? But it's really important to me, and it's my passion. And I want to be as clear and as clean as possible. So I'm on the up and up while we're in this massive warfare right now, spiritually and psychically. Okay, so Love Light says, so that's the thing. It's been happening for years. I don't know. I'd have to look into your energy. I mean, if you want to book a session and I can look at it and tell you what it is exactly, though, I'm going to speak on something around the sexual body hijacking and things like that. LG says that is not fair, especially if you're not giving permission and not enjoying it. Raul says, what do you think about what they did to David Icke? I mean, I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's interesting, the counter levering of that. There was an immediate balance in a certain way for that, because as many of us are aware, when they deleted his channel, and they deleted it off Vimeo shut his account down, and Vimeo's been doing that. There's another person that I heard of through the grapevine, through a client. My client follows this woman, and I know who this woman is. She also has a platform as with her energetic modality. Apparently, she posted an anti-vax video on Vimeo, and now in Vimeo, you pay annually. You pay up front, right? She had paid the pro, which was $1,000, and they shut her whole channel down. You don't get that money back, okay? Because she did she did anti-vax video, and they shut her down. That's ridiculous. But getting back to David Icke, what happened with one interesting thing of how that immediately counter-levered is that because of the way they did it and the other channels that were also affiliated, and how those also got a lot of resistance on other platforms and in the UK, thousands, millions of more people became privy to this and what's going on. And that piece is wonderful. So, but a thing with this, Raul, is that we all have to start looking at is, while in theory this platform is fabulous, if they're going to start doing this type of stuff to us, then we have to seek other platforms. I don't want to lose access to this platform. Nobody who has a channel and appreciates the opportunity that this type of platform offers wants to lose that access. But also, I do not want to, and it is against my moral and ethical code, to completely acquiesce to the removal of my freedom of speech in order to utilize this. So I've been thinking about this, like, where's the balance? Okay, well, at this time, BitChute is an open source platform where you can still post all of this stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe at this point, I'm going to utilize this platform for what I can. And then when I need to communicate about things that I know they're going to censor or filter, and I don't want to have to dance around. It's such a joke if you see a lot of us trying to create, code so that they don't the algorithms don't pull our videos and you can't say this and you can't say that. It's a joke. It's a clown circus act, right? It's just, I'm going to come on and say, hey guys, I'm going to talk about this and this. Hop on over to BitChute. And another thing that YouTube is doing is they're scrambling the BitChute URL hyperlinks. So if somebody posts a BitChute link, you probably notice if you go to click on it, it's going to scramble it. It won't take you there. So copy and paste it and then, open another browser and do it that way. It's just ridiculous. And it's going to take a conscious movement of all of us, all of you guys, to shift platforms. It's a thing. We complain about it, but we still use it. We still consume. We still acquiesce. That's our bad, right? So something's got to give there. Christiana, what about trauma for held issues in the tissues? Like, would Rolfing help? Yeah, Rolfing's awesome, Christiana. I was just talking about Rolfing earlier. So one of the healings that I love to do is totally different than my modality. I know, Christiana, I've told you about this, is I do some healing called Emotion Code Body Code with a wonderful woman named Rose Moreau. And I work with her a lot. I love that work. I'm very intuitive and tuned in. So that work works off the limbic system and it communicates with the body in a way where you're passively observing as the facilitator communicates to your body via your limbic system. And then your body answers via muscle testing, if you guys have ever seen that. And then if you're intuitive like me, because your body might say, oh, this happened 20 years ago. And my intuition will take me to that moment, what my body's talking about. So I have the ability to say, oh, it's that memory, or oh, it's that thought, or oh, whatever. But even if you don't, it's fabulous work. And I trust in it so much, my body clears it immediately. And so Rolfing is amazing. My best friend actually does, I forget the name of it. There's two, Rolfing is obviously, it's not copywritten is not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. So like there's two branches, they're both Rolfing, but they have different names because, one's under this, what's the word, guys? Not copyright, but one's under that word and then one's under the other one, but they're the same modalities. And he does the other one, not Rolfing. Like structural integration, I think is the other one is called. And it's amazing. It changes people's life because your body does store the trauma in the tissue and it doesn't, you can release it in many, many different ways. There's so many millions of modalities that are fabulous and they can be scalar. You can do a physical adjustment and it gives you this emotional release. A lot of us know that. So it's wonderful to approach shadow work from many different ways. And the body locks in a lot of trauma. Okay. Your bone marrow locks in your DNA memory. Your tissue locks in trauma. So it's good to work on many different levels in many different ways. It's all holistic. But Christiana, I totally advocate. I told my best friend when I'm around his area for a while and I can budget because he does it's like a 10 series pack you buy. When I can budget that, I wanted him to take me through a whole structural integration series because I know that my body will love it. Love light. Every now and then it feels off, but it's mostly with people I've never met in this lifetime. But a lot of times it's random, like searching for something, then bam, it happens. I enjoy it, but just off energetically. So love light, I'm going to suggest if you're interested, my dream interpretation astral projection course might be really good for you because we're going to talk about dreamscape. I'm going to go into it a little bit today, but it's really important for us to get a lot more aware and commanding our dream time, guys, because the handling in dream time is going up exponentially right now. They have massive access into the fourth density astral plane through dreamscape. And it's really important to learn how to work with that because that's a huge way in which they get in and impose agreements. And you want to be able to counter that in dream time and after, because not all of us know how to command our dreams, of course, right? I don't know how to fully do that. And there's a lot of opt-ins that happen. There's a lot of manipulation and handling that happens in dream time that you want to redact after the fact. Debbie, we need to come together and move our channel. Yes. I mean, and there's so many things they're in the works, guys, but it's just me right now. And I don't even have at this, I used to have a virtual assistant. She was fabulous, but I don't have that right now. So, I mean, I have this wonderful new website that I'm trying to get launched that has subscription platform that gives you guys monthly subscription. So it's more affordable for you to get more information. And it gives you a forum where you can all come together and you're not filtered and you can connect and communicate. So, send energy of completion my way on that. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Let me get back to my... Okay, so we're going to go into dream time a little bit more in the hacking, but I know this is going to be kind of jumping around, but I'm just going to stick with the order because I'm not even halfway through and we're almost at an hour. So maybe I'll turn this into 2 videos. I'll split it up. But something I wanted to say in regard to everything that's going on right now, right, is now we've all had our experience through the trauma and the fear that we've had to experience and witness, and the ridiculousness of the scam plan that we're experiencing right now, right? So if you're not already doing this, I'm going to give a suggestion to don't be concerned with the NPCs, okay? Don't be concerned with the non-player characters that are programmed to be a biological vessel that simply vomit out the matrix that's programmed into them and go along as the sheeple. They're going to do what they do. They're going to move through their programming of being horrified or being scared or being infuriated when you don't go along with it and all of that stuff. That's just the programming, right? They're the backdrops. They don't really matter. It's just meant to hold up the facade so we don't get clear as day of what the holographic matrix is the holographic matrix, okay? So just let them do them. And if you can, don't put energy into it, because a lot of us have noticed a shift in the consciousness of the awareness while this has been happening. And so if we know not to feed into that, it really does assist in a big way, right? Just let them walk around like the zombies and do their thing and know that, you can even imagine that as like the hologram that's glitching out and you're just like, whatever, this is annoying. That you have to see this, especially with the mask ritual, right? They're moving along and participating in the rituals of the inverse. So, it is what it is, and they're going to continue to do that. They're always going to do that as long as that exists. And we're not going to change that. So let's not waste our energy there and know that that doesn't matter. That can be kind of like, that there's tons of junk food. That McDonald's is bad for you. So just don't go there, right? Just don't buy it. Just eat something healthy. You don't need to spend a ton of time focusing on your upsets that it exists. So that's something that's important to look at and understand. Nicole says, I'm really struggling with wanting to wake people up, but also wanting to allow people to wake up on their own time. It gets very difficult when people who are not awake can affect your own freedoms. Yeah, I agree. Good. I just answered your question. I'm glad to hear that. And, it's a slippery slope and another agenda to go down the rabbit hole of trying to wake everybody up, because it takes you out of your internal process. And, one thing I noticed for me is that I even started getting away from holding focus on how powerful, I know it's powerful, but more powerful than getting people to understand or getting heard or giving you guys information. Because for me, this is my platform. I do it this way. And thank goodness you guys are more receptive. It's not like I'm beating a dead horse, right? Would be really upsetting. Though even on this platform, working to, try to give you guys as much information in real time. And I got away from being more in my center and knowing that the internal work is what shifts it. The internal work is what changes the matrix, the hologram, especially right now. For me, at least, it's super duper apparent and obvious. So again, vigilance on shadow work and clearing and being in your center and moving through that is really, really, really powerful. One thing I want to note that I perceive is interesting. For example, it may be that we never, get to go to a huge concert again, right? It may be that there's no more of these experiences where, people get to go to any type of event where there's thousands or hundreds. Now, the perspective I want to talk about with that one is when it goes back to Looshing, including all churches, all temples, all theaters, all venues are built in a monolithic way that funnels the Louche up to the apex. And that can be siphoned out, okay? These huge events funnel mass amounts of Louche, okay? People get so passionate at religious events, so passionate at sporting events and music events. That's so much energy accumulated. That's so much Louche feed for those that know how to siphon that. So what I think is really interesting on one point with this is if they're opting to wipe that off the board and say, we're going to forego that mass amount of access to Louche. One perspective, and I know it's just one, guys. I know there's a lot of other perspectives on this, and I see many of those as well, but I want to focus on this one, is that at this point, the consciousness access, when we come together, in the way in which our dielectric magnetic bodies synthesize and connect, and we spark each other, and we wake up and we connect and we commune and we fill ourselves and our being and that whole thing, we're community-oriented beings, and we activate ourselves and our quantum and our energetics and our happiness and our emotions so much that there's a tell for me that has superseded to a level where they're not going to risk anymore getting that much Louche extraction, because the consciousness activating, coming together is so powerful, it's not worth it for them anymore. So they're going to forego that type of feed, because bringing us together in these huge groups is getting too much for them to be able to control anymore. Interesting. So, okay. And I'll mention this real quick. We've talked about it and I'll just note it. But again, another important piece about going inside is, when it comes to the controllers or the right-hand path and the left-hand path or Illuminati and Cabal or whatever the hell we want to call it, it's two sides of the same coin, okay? It's a quarreling family squabble. It's Enki, Enlil, Ninmah, all fighting as a sibling rivalry. They all have their own unique little micro agendas, but ultimately it's the same family lineage that want the same outcome. So all paths, all tributaries are going to lead back to the same river. It's all the same thing. It's just going to be a roundabout way to get there. So take care when it comes to getting lost down these tributaries and these storylines and these psyops and these agendas and all of it, okay? Because it's all the same thing. It really, really is. It's going to present in different ways. The experiences will be very different, but when I say it's all the same, you guys know that I speak from a more macro, universal experience, a higher agenda. I'm not saying that it's going to be the same experience on Earth if one group plays out as opposed to the next. No, that will be different. Though ultimately, energetically speaking, quantumly speaking, it's the same thing. So accessing spirit, going internal, the path gets very narrow. The path gets very, very, very narrow if you're staying with the true path. It gets more difficult. Less people are there. There's less access. There's less convenience. There's less of everything because it's a narrow path. Okay. And on the inverse, that path is perceived as strenuous and difficult and without, it's foregoing. And it is, because the way that this inverse matrix has been created is to satiate your pleasures and desires if you're willing to agree and submit and contract with the controller powers that be. They'll give what you want in certain ways if you submit. Those of us that refuse to submit consciously and are working furiously to reclaim what we have already submitted in other timelines, the narrow path sounds just fine to me. Okay. Ultimately, this is a blink of an eye. So another thing for any of you guys who are new on this channel, I have for a very long time perceived myself much more as spirit having a human experience. I don't have much of a problem at all looking at this life as fleeting. And I, in general, don't really have a fear of death. Now, it might be a very different story if somebody had a gun to my face, right? Though I might talk about it in a way that might be triggering for you if you're traumatized and upset, because I'm quite detached from this experience. Because in the grand scheme of things, this is a fraction of a millisecond, right? And it's a very, very, very important fraction of a millisecond. Okay, so let me get back to some questions. Let's see, Nicole, wait, Suzanne, we all got caught up in the beginning of this. We all had to go down some rabbit holes. And we all have to work it out and figure it out. Exactly, you know, and now things are settling a little bit, and we don't want to get complacent and comfortable in the way where, because what they want in one way is to let the dust settle and that new dust to be the new foundation in a way where people are like, okay, well, fine, it's not that bad. And little by little, they start chipping away at your freedoms. We're aware of what's going on, but we don't need to be so freaked out and scatterbrained all over the place where we can't get back to our center, right? I agree. Debbie, I totally agree about the NPCs. It's exhausting and frustrating to talk to them. Yes, it's just ridiculous. And it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe soon enough you guys will get to a point where we can make an inside joke where we can figure out how to make them glitch out when we have to talk to them. So at least it's amusing in one way. Yeah, Nicole, they're definitely going to push a second wave. This was the amuse-bouche. This was the appetizer. Okay. So many of us know that this was, in my perspective, they want it to get way, 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 way worse. Okay. Now, I did appreciate hearing Trump. I wonder if he'll stick to it. Today, I heard him say that when the second wave comes, so it's when, not if, really, you guys. Just know they're planning it. It's already happening, right? Just like they love to say, oh, it's flu season. It's a natural occurrence. It happens all the time, every year at the same time, right? They just insert it in. People are like, okay, it's flu season. That's just natural. That's just how it goes. So now it'll be, virus season, and the next wave will come in and push in, hopefully not too quick. And Trump says that he's not going to shut down the US this time, which I really hope is true. I really hope that he sticks to that. So we'll see. Good, Lovelight. You saw somebody glitch. That might have been fun. Okay. So let's see. We're at about an hour. I might save a lot of this for next time, but I will go into, because I did tell you, Lovelight, we talk about the Dreamtime handling piece. So women, if any of you guys are noticing or have been noticing the hacking of your sexual body, and I won't go too deep into this, but the harvesting of your eggs, basically, unfortunately, they're doing a huge push. They've been doing it for a while, but there's really an uptake right now on them ensuring that they have enough of the genetic code and the DNA material and the epithelial cells and all of this stuff for their next plan in the next, in the next planned matrix realm where they'll have biology accessible. Take care and protect your sexual body. Men, I'm sure this is happening to you guys too. I just have more women clients, is all that is. Sexual bodies are getting hacked left and right. They have been for a long time. Sexual bodies are the most hacked, especially right now. Like what I heard something about the porn industry just going through the roof now that everybody's home, and the porn industry is just basically a huge open portal of Louche where a plethora of entities come right on in and access you. You're having agreements, and it's just like a buffet. So beware. Porn is such an access to underworld entities. It's ridiculous. It's such a efficient, open vortex of the inverse sexual agenda and the way in which they just get in and hack into your sexual body and your energetic body. And, you know, there's a lot of things around the sexual hacking and different, you know, jinns that maybe rape and dream time and all of these things. But another piece of it is they transfer information through your sexual body as well. So if you're handled in a way where you're in the projects and you're being activated sexually in the fourth density realms while you're dreaming, then, you know, they're putting you to work and you're assisting to mule information and codes. And one way that it's happening is through sexual energetic exchange, because there can be huge uploads and downloads of information while having sex. And when somebody is trained, maybe the altar is trained to be able to do that, even though the person that they're having sex with doesn't know it, they are downloading mass amounts, mass payloads of information, and they go and they deliver that through another sexual intercourse with somebody else, and they upload the information to that person. So it's a muling that's happening. But there's a lot of other stuff that happens with sexual body, so just take care. There's so much hacking happening. And I know if you haven't heard of any of this handling stuff or what I'm talking about, it's not going to make sense, and that's a whole nother topic to go into. But those of you who do know, just beware. And women, take some care. I think I need to write a new declaration around the protection of our eggs and ovaries and uterus. That's a topic that's coming up a lot right now with clients. And just protect what's yours. Revoke, revoke, revoke throughout all timelines where they've gotten in and gotten access to that. Or if you're aware of maybe sexual abuse or things that maybe you've experienced when you were growing up, if you've got incest or pedophilia or things like this, that is a huge access point for that into your sexual body. And they're pretty blazing about it right now. One thing that's, they're just like, you know, the up leveling of the hacking and the AI and the implantations, it's so profound that they're just blazing. Right. So another thing that I wanted to say, which I thought was really interesting that I resonate with, and a friend had told me that a friend who follows a lot of, she's more of a truther in regard to understanding the political current events, while she's also aware of metaphysics. And she's proactive in trying to get information clear and, you know, making sure she's on the up and up about signing petitions and things like this. So anyhow, she heard through a source of information, there's no proof around this, so you got to read the frequency signature, right? And I was so pissed when I heard this. One reason why they did the distancing, right, the social distancing, is so the new satellites, I say satellites, but I think there's one, and I'm going to get to the one why I think that, had an easier time calibrating the facial recognition software. Okay. So that really lit me up, and I felt that resonance is true. And I don't know if it's still there, but all through April, and some into May, it could have been a little bit at the tail end of March, while there was I think it was called Comet Swan. Was that the one? A huge comet that came through that we could see in the night sky. There was also a satellite, and I talked about it on this platform before, that was just hanging out. And if you look at it, I could see it. I saw it several evenings at dusk. It wasn't even dark. And it would just sit in the same spot, but it would kind of vacillate. It was like it was doing this. It wasn't really going, the satellites usually they keep traversing, but this one was just kind of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So when I heard that about the social distancing agenda around the calibrating, the facial recognition and all of that, I was like, oh, that's what that was. That was the satellite that was hanging out, calibrating everything. So anyway, you take that however you want, but just a note on one reason that was happening, because let's just make it real easy for them. If they don't, if there's nobody in the vicinity, and it's very easy to pick out one human being, and I mean, just my goodness, right? Okay, let me get to some of the oh wow, Debbie says Trump was in my dream last night. What was the interaction? That's interesting. Are you aware of being handled in dream time? Were you communicating with him? Lovelight, has anyone had more cramping than usual with all the hacking the last 3 to 4 months specifically? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Lovelight. There's a lot going on in the sexual body right now, in the feminine menstrual body. And it's really unfortunate. And we're going to have to figure something else more thoroughly out around it, because they're being very, very brazen. And I've heard some really upsetting stories about what's going on, and I've seen it and I've witnessed it and I've experienced it. And they're just, and even in the Borg fields, they've up-leveled the tech and the AI so much at this point that it's just fast and furious. And there's so much more implantation happening. There's so much more siphoning. There's so much more hacking. There's so much more just all of it. So when I say double down on your shadow work, I'm like double, triple, quadruple, infinitesimal down, because we have to work to counter how quickly it's all slipping in to the AI holographic reality in such a more thorough way. And if you notice, one thing I will mention that I did write down, I've gotten really, really annoyed. I basically wrote an angry opt-out letter to Netflix, because the predictive programming and the handling around the entertainment right now is ridiculous, you guys. Every single thing that they're throwing at is predictive programming for the timelines that they want to manifest. And if you've noticed so much more, I'm not a gamer, so that's not really been a part of my world. But now, even those that's not a thing, they're infiltrating the gaming virtual reality energy into the entertainment now. They're showing you that they're showing you how they've uploaded the Matrix and you're playing it as a virtual reality, right? And they're getting people used to it all being a game, and them being used to, even like there's a lot of these shows out right now where the humans are so much more enamored in the virtual reality than their walking life, that they're hurting themselves in their walking life because it's gone from, phone in the face to like the virtual reality goggles, and they walk off a bridge or something. So it's just so in my face in that regard. I can't even handle it. I'm just watching myself kind of opt out of even entertainment. And I was talking to Lauda about it because I was pretty upset. And she was like, well, just start watching the 80s stuff. There's still predictive programming, but it was the real sun. And I was like, oh, that's so true. So we won't go into it. But for those of you that don't know, I think it happened in the early 90s. The magnetic sun came online, and then the Saturnian solar frequency really took over. So 80s and pre, there's the original sun, our original solar frequency. So it's a bit more innocent, it's a bit more authentic and real, and that's what she meant by that. So that might be what I'll do, is when I want to, indulge in entertainment, maybe I'll just watch something from the 80s or pre, so it's that much more innocent. But anyway, okay, any last questions, guys? Because I'm gonna hop off now. Shaggy Buckaroo, what a great name. Says, yes, noticed I haven't watched Netflix in months, just weird stuff they're pushing. Oh, it's so weird. It's so bad. And it's so triggering. It's like, not only is it the predictive programming, but it's meant to trigger you and activate you so that when you go to sleep, you get handled because you watch something about alters. So all of this, all of the X-Men stuff or superhuman stuff or spy stuff or people that are like covert trained, all of that is the handling. That's the alters. So when you watch that stuff, if you have the programming in your field, if you've been a part of the projects, you get triggered. And then you go to sleep, and then it's that much easier for them to activate that alter in you that night and put them to work. So just take care, because that's why you're attracted to those kind of shows, because the programming is handling you through it and impulses you to watch it. You're welcome, Sun Green. Thank you. You're welcome, Christiana. Yeah, Debbie, it is huge with Netflix. It's gross. And it's huge with all of them, right? But whatever, what are you gonna do? We're in the Matrix, that's what it is. It is blatantly ridiculous. I don't know if there's any interference listening to audiobooks. That's a good question, because I was actually just about to start a subscription for an audiobook platform. So I'll read into that. I'll listen into that and let you know. And you guys, again, if you're interested in participating in my Dream Interpretation and Astral Projection course, it's a 4-week course series. There is an early bird special. If you sign up by Tuesday, you can get it for $175. After Tuesday, it goes to $210. And we'll start that course May 30th, which it'll be every Saturday for 4 weeks from 3 to 4:30 p.m. You can sign up for that at jupitersoundscape.com/workshops-1, or just go to jupitersoundscape.com and go to the virtual courses, and you'll find Dream Interpretation, Astral Projection with me, Chloe Hudson. That'll also be working towards, I'm going to start offering certifications in my work, Intuitive Soul Advancement. Level 1 will be coming up in several months. There are many prerequisites for that if you guys are interested. So all of the courses I'll be offering through Jupiter Soundscape in the next few months will be prereqs. And I also have a prerequisite of 240 hours of shadow work with a professional facilitator. It doesn't matter what type of shadow work, right? We just talked about Rolfing. The type of work I do. Have you been to a psychologist? Have you done body talk? There's a million bajillion types of modalities, but I will require you to prove that you've done that. And I find that very important, because I am not interested in certifying people to do what I do, but they haven't done the work internally that's going to protect them from getting hacked, getting other people hacked, being clear on what it is they're seeing. So that's why I put that in there. All together with the prereqs, it's like 420 hours. That is still less than the average yoga and massage therapy certification. It's totally doable. And if you're interested, let me know. Nicole says, can you speak on hacking of plant medicines such as cannabis and psilocybin? I used to work with these plant medicines a lot, and now they feel very infiltrated. Yeah, I don't talk about plant medicine a lot because people get real triggered, I've noticed one time, because I have my own personal thoughts around like ayahuasca, for example. But avid users tend to get real personal and upset and really defend it. Though I will say this, that everything that it has been controlled by the state, And there are certain stipulations that they have to go through in the way they're produced, are susceptible to being handled and hacked. Cannabis has a lot of infiltration from the zeta reptilians. Interesting Freudian slip. The zeta reticuli. So I just said reptilian. So let's add that one in there too. I mean, most of us know alcohol comes with a slew of its spirits as well, right? I'm sure psilocybin does as well. The thing is anything that's going to drop your energetic frequency boundaries, you're going to be susceptible. Though in addition, things that have been specifically handled and processed, unfortunately, like a lot of the cannabis, does let in the zetas. And I have firsthand experience of that because I like to partake from time to time in cannabis. And when I do, again, they'll just be blazing. They'll show up right in my field and show me them. And I'm like, damn it. So I have a friend who, they know somebody who, and a lot of cannabis growers and producers are basically horticulturalists, right? It's a real passion. There's this wonderful epicureal thing around it. It's artisanal, especially in California. They take it very seriously. They love their plants. It's a whole thing, right? So I know somebody who grows, and they not only, they don't, one reason that they don't want to get the licensure around it, it's not only because of what you have to go through, but it's because they know that if they get licensed and go through those, somebody will come around and spray, right? Like they just do it. It's like they know where you are, you're trapped. They're going to find a way to infiltrate it and ensure they get their AI into it, unbeknownst to you even. So it's just an unfortunate thing. Though I will say this, it's interesting you bring up the psilocybin. I definitely perceive that in many cases, the plant medicine is very, very helpful. I know that it goes both ways. I've watched people, for example, in ayahuasca, I've watched people fracture deeply. I've watched a very astute, high-level Reiki master fracture deeply on plant medicine. And I'm talking somebody who worked with energy nonstop for years on end and is very proficient at it. So, there's that. I've watched it assist people to prep their womb so they could finally get pregnant, which was the biggest desire they had in their life for years. So it can go both ways for all of it. I've microdosed on psilocybin and healed myself of a deep heartbreak. It was really wonderful. I took a week and I microdosed of psilocybin, and it got me through the worst part of a heartbreak. And so I highly advocate for, using microdosing for the right person for depression and things like that. But you have to know your body frequency. People can fracture severely on things. People can, uplift and up-level in extraordinary ways. To each their own. Everybody's different. So, Nicole, anything can be infiltrated, absolutely. Though things that already alter our consciousness are that much more susceptible. Which is unfortunate because it's another way in which they've taken beautiful natural gifts of the earth medicine and inverted it, right? So you just have to take care on whatever it is you partake in. And, right now we're talking about Netflix. They can hack you through that. It's anything. If you're in the Matrix, they can hack you. Let's put it that way. Maybe healers are more sensitive. I don't know. It's funny you say that because I have a client who she partook in ayahuasca to understand what the whole brouhaha was. And I think they call it sitting in. I've never done it. She sat in, I think 3 or 4 times. And she's a little person. She's petite and short. And it never worked for her, which I found very, very interesting. She used it 3 or 4 times. And sometimes they do it 2 days in a row. And it never affected her consciousness. So she's like, well, it just didn't work for me. And I thought that was so intriguing. So, I mean, the body chemistry is pretty interesting, right? Okay, guys, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Love y'all. Bye.